The day our CEO announced the Innovation Leadership Initiative, the entire company erupted in applause. It wasn't just another internal project, it was the opportunity everyone had been waiting for. The team behind the winning proposal would receive company-wide recognition, a substantial bonus, and most importantly, a promotion into senior leadership. My name is Daniel Brooks, and I had worked at Apex Solutions for nearly 7 years. I wasn't the loudest person in the office, nor was I the kind of employee who constantly promoted himself. I believed that good work spoke for itself. While others spent time networking around the coffee machine, I stayed late solving problems, improving systems, and helping teammates meet impossible deadlines. When the CEO explained that the project would focus on improving the company's logistics platform, I knew I had an idea that could transform the business. For years, I had noticed the same inefficiencies, costing the company thousands of dollars every month. Delivery routes overlapped, inventory updates were delayed, and customer complaints continued to rise because different departments couldn't share information quickly enough. That evening, instead of going home at 5 o'clock like everyone else, I stayed in the office until nearly 10. I filled whiteboards with diagrams, analyzed years of company reports, and began designing a completely new workflow that would connect every department through a single intelligent dashboard. Over the next 6 months, my life revolved around that project. I arrived before sunrise and often left long after the cleaning staff had finished their rounds. My weekends disappeared into spreadsheets, software testing, and endless revisions. I missed birthdays, canceled vacations, and even skipped family gatherings because I genuinely believed this project could change both the company and my career. Most people noticed how hard I was working. One of them was Jason Carter. Jason had joined the company about 2 years earlier. Unlike me, he was naturally charismatic. Everyone liked him. He could walk into any room, make people laugh, and leave with 3 new business connections. Managers loved his confidence, clients enjoyed talking to him, and executives remembered his name. He also had a habit of appearing wherever success was already happening. One afternoon, he stopped by my desk carrying 2 cups of coffee. "You've practically moved into this office," he joked, placing 1 cup beside my keyboard. I smiled. "It feels that way." He glanced at the large monitor displaying my latest prototype. "This looks incredible." "Thanks." "You know," he continued, "someone with your technical skills could really use someone who's good at presentations." I looked up. "What do you mean?" "You're brilliant, Daniel. But executives don't always understand technical details. Let me help you present the project when the time comes. We'll make a great team." It sounded reasonable. Public speaking had never been my strongest skill, so I agreed. From that day forward, Jason attended nearly every project meeting. I shared research files with him through the company's collaboration system so he could understand the presentation. Every document, spreadsheet, design file, and progress report remained stored on the company's secure server, complete with automatic timestamps showing who created and edited each file. I never imagined those digital records would one day save my career. As the deadline approached, excitement spread throughout the office. Executives scheduled the final presentation before the board of directors, department heads, and the CEO himself. The night before the presentation, Jason called me. "Don't worry," he said confidently. "Tomorrow's going to change your life." I believed him. The next morning, I arrived early to make one final review of the slides. Everything was perfect. Minutes before the presentation, however, my phone rang. It was our biggest client. Their distribution system had suddenly failed, threatening to delay thousands of customer orders. My department manager rushed over. "Daniel, we need you in conference room B immediately. You're the only one who understands their system." "I have the executive presentation in 20 minutes. "I know," he replied. "Jason can start without you. Just solve the client's issue and join as soon as you can." I had no choice. For the next 30 minutes, I worked with the client and our technical team until the system was restored. The crisis was resolved, and I hurried toward the executive conference room, expecting to walk in during the middle of our presentation. As I reached the open door, I froze. The room erupted in applause. Jason stood confidently at the front beside my presentation. The giant screen displayed the system I had spent 6 months creating. The CEO walked over, shook Jason's hand, and smiled. "Outstanding work, Jason. This is exactly the kind of leadership we're looking for. My heart sank. I waited. Surely Jason would explain. Surely he would say the project belonged to both of us. Instead, he simply smiled and accepted every compliment. One executive said, "You solved problems we've struggled with for years." Another added, "Your vision will transform this company." Jason thanked each of them without mentioning my name a single time. Then came the announcement that changed everything. The CEO looked around the room and declared, "Effective immediately, Jason Carter will lead the implementation of this project and oversee the new innovation team." Everyone applauded again. I stood silently outside the conference room, watching 6 months of my work become someone else's success. For a brief moment, anger told me to storm inside and expose him in front of everyone. But then I remembered something the company's IT director had once mentioned during a training session. Our system records every document, every revision, every login, every timestamp, and every author. I looked down at my company laptop. Every file, every email, every version, every late-night update. The truth had been quietly recording itself for 6 months. Jason thought he had stolen my project. He had no idea he had left behind a trail of evidence that even he couldn't erase. The morning after the presentation, I walked into the office as if nothing had happened. That surprised everyone. Several coworkers glanced in my direction, probably expecting me to confront Jason in front of the entire department. Instead, I greeted people with my usual smile, grabbed a cup of coffee, and sat down at my desk. Jason stopped by a few minutes later. "Hey, Daniel," he said casually. "I know yesterday was a little unexpected." I looked up from my computer. "Was it?" He laughed nervously. "You know what I mean." "I do." For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then he leaned against my desk. "Look, I didn't have much choice. The executives were asking questions and you weren't there." I nodded. "So you decided to answer them?" "It just happened." "No," I replied calmly. "It didn't." His smile faded. "I think you're overreacting." Without another word, he walked away. That conversation confirmed everything I needed to know. Jason wasn't planning to correct the misunderstanding. He intended to build his career on my work. Fortunately for me, he had forgotten one important detail. Technology never forgets. That afternoon, I logged into the company's project management system. Every document I had created over the previous 6 months was still there. The original proposal, the design diagrams, the programming documentation, meeting notes, testing reports. Every file displayed the author's name, creation date, and complete revision history. Thousands of digital records. Every one of them pointed to me. I quietly began organizing the evidence. I exported version histories, saved email conversations, collected meeting invitations, downloaded approval records from department managers. I wasn't creating evidence, I was preserving it. Later that week, I met with Olivia, one of the senior IT administrators who had managed the company's document servers for nearly a decade. Without accusing anyone, I asked a simple question. "Can project ownership be verified through system logs?" She smiled. "Every action leaves a record. Even deleted files?" "Especially deleted files." I couldn't help smiling. She continued. "Our servers record who creates documents, edits them, downloads them, presents them, and even which computer they're opened from." Exactly what I hoped to hear. Meanwhile, Jason had officially become the leader of the implementation team. The problem was obvious almost immediately. He didn't truly understand the project. During planning meetings, engineers asked detailed technical questions. Jason hesitated. "I'll get back to you on that." When software developers requested clarification about system architecture, he avoided giving direct answers. "We're still evaluating our options." There was only one problem. There were no options. I had already documented every solution months earlier. The implementation team became frustrated. Deadlines started slipping. Simple decisions that should have taken minutes now required days because Jason kept asking me private questions after meetings. "Daniel," he whispered one afternoon, "how exactly does the inventory synchronization module work?" I looked at him. "You presented it to the executive board." He forced a laugh. Yeah, I just want to make sure I explain it correctly. You could always tell them who actually designed it. His face immediately became serious. I think it's too late for that. I returned to my desk without answering. Over the following weeks, the problems became impossible to ignore. The CEO began attending weekly progress meetings. Unlike the executives who had only seen the presentation, the CEO asked detailed questions. What happens if two warehouses update inventory at the same time? Jason hesitated. We're still optimizing that process. The CEO frowned. I thought that had already been solved. It has, I quietly thought to myself, because I solved it months ago. Another executive asked how the routing algorithm reduced transportation costs. Jason stumbled through an explanation that barely made sense. Several department heads exchanged confused looks. For the first time, doubt appeared on the CEO's face. After the meeting, I noticed something interesting. The CEO didn't walk out with Jason. Instead, he stayed behind reviewing printed project documents. A week later, another challenge arrived. Our largest client requested a live demonstration before signing a multi-million-dollar contract. The CEO personally attended the meeting. Jason confidently began explaining the system. Everything went smoothly until the client's technical director asked a single question. Can you explain how your predictive scheduling engine prioritizes inventory shortages during regional disruptions? The room became silent. Jason stared at the screen. He clicked through several slides. He drank a sip of water. Finally, he answered. Our engineering team is still refining that feature. The client looked surprised. But your presentation last month described it as fully operational. Jason had no answer. The CEO slowly turned toward him. I thought you built this system. I led the project. The difference between those two sentences did not go unnoticed. After the meeting, the CEO quietly asked everyone except Jason to leave the conference room. From the hallway, I saw them talking for nearly 40 minutes. Jason walked out looking pale. The next morning, I received an unexpected email from the CEO's executive assistant. Subject: Private meeting, 2 p.m. When I entered the CEO's office that afternoon, Jason was already sitting there. On the conference table lay several folders. One contained printed email records. Another displayed document version histories. A third held system audit logs from the company's servers. The CEO looked at both of us before opening the first folder. His expression was calm, but his eyes told me he already knew far more than either of us expected. The truth was finally about to speak for itself. I had imagined that moment 100 different ways. In some versions, I exposed Jason in front of the entire company. In others, I slammed my laptop onto the conference table and demanded justice. But as I sat across from the CEO that afternoon, I realized none of those fantasies would have accomplished what I truly wanted. I didn't want revenge. I wanted the truth. The CEO looked at both of us before opening the first folder. Before either of you says anything, he began calmly, I'd like you to explain your roles in the Innovation Leadership Project. Jason spoke first. I led the project from start to finish. Daniel helped with technical development, but I was responsible for coordinating everything. The CEO nodded without reacting. Then he looked at me. Daniel? I answered honestly. I designed the system, wrote the proposal, built the prototype, tested every feature, and documented the implementation plan. Jason attended meetings and reviewed the presentation. The room became silent. The CEO opened the first folder. It contained printed emails. These emails spanned 6 months, he said. Every major update was sent by Daniel. He placed another stack of papers on the table. This is the version history from our document management system. Page after page showed my name. Proposal created by Daniel Brooks. System architecture designed by Daniel Brooks. Testing reports completed by Daniel Brooks. Implementation guide written by Daniel Brooks. Risk analysis prepared by Daniel Brooks. The CEO turned another page. The presentation itself, he paused, was created by Daniel Brooks 48 hours before the executive meeting. Jason shifted uncomfortably in his chair. The CEO wasn't finished. He opened a third folder containing IT audit logs. Our technology department confirmed that every major document originated from Daniel's employee account. Every revision, every saved version, every late-night login, and every project milestone points to one person. He looked directly at Jason. "Can you explain that?" Jason took a deep breath. I was managing the project." The CEO calmly asked another question. "Then why couldn't you answer the client's technical questions last week?" Jason remained silent. The CEO continued. "Why did you tell the executive team this was your work?" Jason looked down at the table. "I never actually said Daniel wasn't involved." The CEO leaned back in his chair. "No," he paused. "You simply allowed everyone to believe you were the creator." The distinction was impossible to deny. For several long seconds, no one spoke. Finally, Jason broke the silence. "I'm sorry." The words sounded hollow. "I never planned for this to happen." The CEO folded his hands. "Tell me what happened." Jason closed his eyes. "When Daniel was called away during the presentation, everyone assumed I had built the project." "Why didn't you correct them?" "I thought," his voice shook, "I thought if I admitted the truth, I'd lose the opportunity." The CEO nodded slowly. "So you chose your career over your integrity." Jason couldn't argue. He simply lowered his head. The CEO closed the folders. "In this company, talent matters." He looked at me. "But integrity matters more." He turned back toward Jason. "Taking credit for another employee's work is a serious violation of our leadership standards." Jason's face turned pale. The CEO continued. "Effective immediately, you are removed as project leader." He pressed a button on his desk, and the human resources director entered the office. After reviewing the findings, HR informed Jason that he would receive a formal disciplinary action and be reassigned to a non-management role pending further review. His eligibility for promotion was revoked, and he would no longer supervise the innovation team. Jason quietly gathered his notebook. Before leaving, he stopped beside me. "I'm sorry, Daniel." I looked at him. "I believe you regret getting caught." He lowered his eyes. This time he had no response. After he left, the CEO smiled for the first time that afternoon. "Daniel." "Yes, sir?" "I owe you an apology." I looked surprised. "I congratulated the wrong person." "You didn't know the truth." "That's exactly why I'm changing something." He handed me a new folder. Inside was a letter. "Project Director, Innovation Division." My hands trembled. "Is this?" He smiled. "A promotion." I couldn't believe it. "You earned this 6 months ago." I thanked him, but he wasn't finished. "I'd also like you to present the project to our board of directors next Monday." The following week, I stood in the same conference room where Jason had accepted applause that should have belonged to someone else. This time, the introduction was different. The CEO stepped to the front of the room. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced, "I'd like you to meet the employee who actually created the Innovation Leadership Project." The room erupted in applause, not because of sympathy, because the truth had finally been recognized. After the presentation, several coworkers approached me. One by one, they apologized for assuming Jason had been responsible for the project. "I should have known," one engineer admitted. "You answered every difficult question from day one." Another colleague smiled. "Hard work always leaves fingerprints." That sentence stayed with me. A month later, the company introduced a new policy requiring detailed project ownership records and documented contributions for every major initiative. The CEO explained that great ideas deserved proper recognition, and no employee should ever lose credit for honest work again. Looking back, I realized I had learned one of the most valuable lessons of my career. Recognition gained through deception may shine brightly for a moment, but it never lasts. Real achievement doesn't need loud arguments or public revenge. It only needs time, patience, and the courage to let the truth speak for itself. Jason stole my presentation. He stole my applause. For a little while, he even stole my promotion. But he could never steal the work itself. Because every late night, every problem I solved, Every line I wrote and every idea I created had already left a record. And in the end, those records told the story that no lie could erase. That wasn't just justice, it was proof that honesty is the only success worth building a career on.